Roth conversions are an important strategy for a lot of retirees because they have a lot of benefits. But doing them in a tax efficient manner is really important. And the timing on when you start your Social Security plays a key component to that. Hi, my name is Will Goodson. In today's video, I'm going to walk through a case study that gives an overview of doing Roth conversions and how the timing of Social Security impacts it. So let's check it out. So here we're looking at our case study for John and Jane. They are both 66 years old and about to retire. They have financial assets including $200,000 in cash savings, $600,000 in a taxable brokerage account, and $750,000 in IRAs. For retirement income, John has a pension from his previous employer equal to $30,000 per year, and they are both qualified for Social Security and expect to receive $42,000 total. And they are each have reached their full retirement age of 66 and 8 months, so they'd be able to start and receive 100% of these Social Security benefits. Living expenses, they expect to need about $110,000 per year. That's approximately $9,200 per month, and that's $80,000 per year after factoring in that pension income. And their retirement objectives include deciding when to start Social Security. They're leaning toward taking it right away because they are retiring and because they've reached full retirement age. They would like to do annual Roth conversions, and they've kind of pinpointed about $50,000 per year with the goal of doing that over 3 to 4 years, possibly more, possibly up until when they are having to start taking the required minimum distributions for the purpose of potentially reducing those future RMDs, and then also just being able to have a pool of Roth funds set aside for future kind of supplemental withdrawals if they need it or want to take it in the future. And then, of course, just coming up with kind of a cohesive ongoing retirement income plan. And so the first thing we want to do is look at a tax projection for John and Jane's overall situation, including looking at if they were to start taking Social Security right away. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here we have the tax projection that we put together for John and Jane. Again, this is looking at them going ahead and starting their Social Security this year. And looking at this key figures box here at the top, we can see that their total income, their adjusted gross income, is just under $76,000 per year. This includes the $30,000 pension that John receives. This also includes the taxable portion of Social Security. We can see down here at the far right, they would be taking and receiving $42,000 for the year, but only about half of that would be taxable given their overall tax position. It also includes things like interest income on their cash savings, some dividends from the portfolio, and a little bit of short-term and long-term capital gains from some positions that they also sold within that brokerage account. So that's how they end up at this just under $76,000 per year. If they take the standard deduction of $30,750, well, that leaves them a taxable income of $45,225 and an actual tax liability of just under $4,100 for the year. They're marginally in the 12% bracket, and they've got an average tax rate of about 5.4%. So a very low overall tax position to be in. If we look at of the $45,225, most of that is ordinary income, about $37,975, which puts them kind of in the lower half of this 12% marginal bracket. And because, again, their overall situation is so low, the qualified income they have, which is the long-term capital gains and a portion of the dividends are qualified dividends, those two get taxed at long-term capital gains rates. And because their total taxable income is below the 15% threshold, all of this qualified income is falling into the 0% capital gains bracket, so they're not paying any taxes on it, which is nice. And so that kind of helps explain why they are in this overall very low tax position. And that does set the stage for looking at doing Roth conversions. So what we're going to do next is look at a similar projection, kind of keeping everything the same, but doing that $50,000 Roth conversion. Okay, so now we're looking at the tax projection with them taking Social Security, but now doing a $50,000 Roth conversion. And the first most obvious thing we can see is that their adjusted gross income has increased by a pretty noticeable amount. Obviously, a big chunk of this is the Roth conversion, because when you do conversions, all of that money is fully taxable. It's fully taxable as ordinary income. So that's going to account for the largest increase. The other portion is that now, again, if we go back down here to the bottom right, we can see that now about 85% of their total Social Security benefits are now taxable. Previously, it was only about half, but as income rises, so does the amount that has to get reported, and it does cap out at 85%, which they're currently hitting. So that's additional income that's being triggered by doing that Roth conversion. So again, taking the same standard deduction. So in this case, their taxable income is going to be $103,250. So now their total tax liability has increased to a little over $12,300. It's essentially tripled. They're in the 22% marginal bracket, and now their average tax rate is 9.2%. So gone up by almost twice as much. If we go down here, we can see now they are falling just into the very bottom of the 22% bracket. They've filled up with the conversion and the additional Social Security income. They've now completely filled up the 12% bracket and now going into the 22% bracket. One other noticeable change is, again, down here, that qualified income, those long-term capital gains and the qualified dividends. Well, because their total taxable income now exceeds the 15% threshold, well, all of that money, all of that qualified income is going to be taxed at 15%. That's not a huge amount, but it just goes to show that by doing the conversion and triggering more taxable Social Security income, it's now put them over that limit. And so there's an additional scenario that John and Jane can look at to try to accomplish that same goal of doing conversions, but potentially doing it in a little bit more tax efficient manner. So let's take a look at that. So we want to look at an alternative scenario in the case for John and Jane here. We're still looking at doing that $50,000 conversion, but in this instance, we're going to look at delaying Social Security benefits for now. And instead, they're going to sell $50,000 from their taxable brokerage account, which would result in about a $35,000 realized long-term capital gain, and use that to help cover portions of their living expenses, and then also using $30,000 from their cash savings. Because as you may recall, they need about $110,000. They get $30,000 from John's pension. So taking $50,000 from their brokerage account and using some of their cash savings, well, that will make up the difference. And it does have an impact from a tax perspective when we look at doing these Roth conversions. So let's see what that projection looks like. So here we have the tax projection for that alternate scenario. Again, still doing $50,000 Roth conversions, but delaying Social Security, not taking any Social Security for the year. And as you can see, their adjusted gross income under this circumstance is $128,300. Again, going down here at the bottom right, we can see there's no Social Security income reported, but they do have larger long-term capital gains, which is being included in AGI, as is the $50,000 of the Roth conversion. Still taking the standard deduction, that puts their taxable income at $97,550 with a tax liability of just under $7,300 on the year. They are now back in the marginal tax bracket of 12%, and they have an average tax rate of about 5.7%. And here we can really see the difference on why the tax liability in this circumstance is lower than if they were to do Roth conversions and start Social Security at the same time. Of the $97,550, we can see that $60,300 of that is ordinary income, and again, puts them right kind of in the middle of that 12% marginal bracket. But down here, looking at the capital gains, this is where it really makes a bigger difference. Again, previously they only had qualified income of about $7,250. In this case, it's $37,250 because they sold that $50,000 from their taxable brokerage account. You would think that would kick off a lot of taxes. But in this case, they are still able to realize about 90% of this qualified income in the 0% capital gains bracket. The reason for that is because this income threshold for where the 15% bracket starts, this $94,050, well, I like to think of it as like a bucket. And you put in your ordinary income first. This $60,300 goes into that bucket first. Again, this is taxed at the marginal brackets, not as capital gains, but it is what is used first to determine where the taxable income threshold kind of begins and ends. So that $60,300 goes in first. Well, that still leaves quite a bit left in the 0% bracket. So to the tune of $33,750, all of that is taxed at 0%. It's not being taxed at all. The only amount of this total qualified income amount that's being taxed at 15% is the excess between their taxable income and the $94,050 threshold. So that's $3,500. So out of the $37,250 of total qualified income they have, only $3,500 is being taxed at 15%. The rest is at zero, which again explains why their total tax liability is less than if they had done the same conversion and started Social Security income as well. And so under this scenario, they are able to keep their tax liability low, still do the Roth conversions that they're looking to do, and they're going to still get the funds needed to cover their living expenses, again, using cash savings and using money from their taxable brokerage account. And they're doing it in a really tax efficient manner. The other caveat to this is by delaying Social Security, those benefits will continue to increase now that they're past full retirement age. And if they were to do this for the next, say, 3 or 4 years up until age 70, well, they would be able to continue to do these large Roth conversions and get a nice pool of Roth funds set aside as they head into the early years of retirement. They could do, $150,000 to $200,000 under this scenario, and their Social Security benefits will be increasing. So at age 70, they would be getting more than what they would if they were to start it right as they retire. So again, looking at this scenario, we can see that because they have these other financial resources, being able to put off Social Security and delay that timing allows them to still do these meaningful Roth conversions and do it in a much more tax efficient way.
As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts to doing Roth conversions and really doing retirement income planning in general. And there's 3 really important components to it. One are the financial resources you have available, what different account types that you have. The second is what your objectives are for doing Roth conversions in terms of the size and the scope, how long you want to do them, how much you're going to be converting each year. And then the third component is how much control you have over when you start taking your Social Security benefits. The more control you have over those 3 things, the more you're going to be able to do Roth conversions in a tax efficient manner and achieve the outcomes that you're looking for. I hope this information was helpful. If so, feel free to check out these other videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.